Hey everybody, my name is Ryan Sanford, and I'm going to be talking about my paper, which was about creativity and mental illness. So my thesis was that there is a correlation between creativity and mental illness, that creativity is an exceptionally effective coping mechanism, and that although it is an exceptionally effective coping mechanism, you need to pay attention to how often you use it in order to ensure that you don't overuse it. Now my first claim is about creativity and mental illness, and the fact that creativity can be extremely beneficial for those who struggle with mental illness. My first example is about a group of students who went to China. While they were on their trip, they experienced a severe earthquake, and several of them came back with PTSD because of it. Now, after a couple bouts of music therapy, which allowed the students to process the event in a much more meaningful way than they had been able to before, they actually were able to alleviate some of their PTSD symptoms and process the event in a much more effective way. Another example of creativity helping someone with mental illness is in a study involving six autistic children. They and their families developed communication goals that they would like to reach and were put into interpretive dance classes. Now, through the interpretive dance classes, they developed their communication abilities, and all of them reached their communication goals significantly faster than the other children who were a control group who were not put into interpretive dance classes. Now, the reason why creativity can help people with mental illness primarily is due to a concept called divergent thinking. Now, divergent thinking is the process of the brain using different neural pathways in order to think in a different way, structure ideas in a different way, and view the world in a different way. So it can help people with PTSD by allowing them to process the events differently in a more meaningful way so that they can get more out of them rather than just being stuck in the same loop. And it can help people with autism by allowing them to see the world in a different way or process their surroundings in a different way. And overall benefit and be able to interact with the world in a much more comfortable manner for themselves. Now, creativity is an exceptional coping mechanism. And a coping mechanism is a strategy that people use often in the face of stress or trauma in order to help or manage difficult emotions. Now, in plain terms, it's just something you do when you feel stressed out that helps relieve that stress. Anything from going to the gym, riding a bike, hanging out with friends, or drawing in a notebook. Now, there are significant mental health benefits when people are creatively active, such as having reduced stress, anxiety, or depressive symptoms, and even helping improve the immune system. Now, the primary reason for that is similar to the reason why creativity stimulates diversive thinking, which is that while being actively creative, your frontal cortex shuts down to a degree. Your frontal cortex is the part of your brain that does most of your logical decisions and is most heavily worked most of the time while just walking around in your everyday life. By shutting down that frontal cortex, you force your brain to push through pathways it doesn't normally push through and allows for things such as dopamine or serotonin or those happy brain chemicals to be released and allow you to feel better. Now, my final point is about the danger of overusing coping mechanisms. Although coping mechanisms such as creativity can be extremely effective and help you reduce your stress, if overused, they can become maladaptive or even become harmful. This is because your brain will begin to associate the action of using your coping mechanism with the feeling of being stressed, and it will think, oh, this is happening, I should be stressed, which honestly can lead to spirals because A, the coping mechanism you usually work for isn't working, and B, it's making things even worse. Now, the American Addiction Center claims that variation is key within coping mechanisms. So having a variety of not only coping mechanisms within like a creative field, but having things like going for a run or hanging out with friends or drawing is key in order to live a balanced lifestyle and make sure that you don't overuse any one of them. Now, there are several perspectives that need to have attention paid to them in this regard. First and foremost is mentally ill people. You can't have the discussion around mental health without mentally ill people, and it's essential that they're brought into the conversation and included in research like this. Another community that is proportionally suffers from more mental illness than almost any other community is the LGBTQ community. And by researching various coping mechanisms and ways to mitigate mental illness or catch it before it arises is essential, especially for younger people in the LGBTQ community. In conclusion, creativity is an exceptional coping mechanism, and I would um, employ that you use it in your life, especially right now. Although it might be exceptional, make sure you have other coping mechanisms to work around with it. That way, you're not just relying on one in case you need it more often than it's able to give benefits from. Another thing to consider is monitoring your use of coping mechanisms, not only to make sure that you're not overusing any, but in order to self regulate or kind of pay attention to how your mental health is as you use coping mechanisms more as you're more stressed out. And finally, pay attention to your mental health. It's a hard time right now, and you really have to look out for yourself and the way you're feeling. Thank you, guys.